Good morning, basketball world. This is the Around the Association podcast, the weekend wrap-up edition for your Veterans Day, November 11th, 2019. I'm your host, Danny Thompson, checking in with you. It's been a crazy weekend in the NBA, so let's try to catch you back up on everything you missed in about 15 minutes or so. But before I continue, follow the podcast on Spotify, on Spreaker, iTunes, as well as Podcast Addict, our good friends at iHeartRadio and Google Podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at Danny, DANNY, 3 Thompson, THOMPSON, and on Facebook, follow the Facebook page, which is Around the Association.com, as well as on Facebook, which is Around the Association Radio. And also check out our website and our daily podcast and my weekly radio show in Orlando on 98.5 The Wire. So, this was a wild weekend in the NBA. You would think that they had 1,000 games going on this weekend, but really it wasn't. There was a lot of good action on the floor and, of course, a whole bunch of stuff that happened off the floor. So let's start with the big story on the floor this weekend. The Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic, not one, but hit two game-winning shots at the buzzer basically on the weekend, giving Denver two huge wins to catch themselves back up in the Western Conference race. They're now, I think half game behind the LA Lakers. His buzzer beaters over the weekend propelled Denver to two key wins. And the really thing with Nikola Jokic is that when you watch Nikola Jokic, he's not the biggest guy in the league. You know, like I say, when I say the biggest guy in the league is like, you look at guys his size, Joel Embiid, you look at Karl Anthony Towns, and then you see Nikola Jokic. You see three different sizes of players. And Jokic, he might not have the look of a guy who is a monster. But the thing is, Jokic does everything on the floor, and he just somehow hits humongous shots down the stretch. Like I said, two game winners over the weekend. Denver won two big games over the weekend, and really, that game with Minnesota on the Friday night. I think it was Saturday. It was Sunday night last night, actually. This game winner over the Timberwolves last night. And then on Friday night, he did it again Friday night as well, too, when they took care of business over the, first thing in the morning, over the Philadelphia 76ers. Like I said, two game winning shots. Sixers, the Nuggets now 7-2. They won both those games basically due to heart and hustle. And, they're starting to get healthy. Will Barton is now back in the lineup. They're finding ways to get Michael Porter Jr. involved. He's starting to receive more minutes. The shooting has been getting a lot better. You watch guys, and the guys are starting to fill their roles. Jamal Murray, is Jamal Murray. Paul Millsap is Paul Millsap. The Nuggets are a team, like I said, they didn't add much in the offseason besides Jeremy Grant and Porter actually being healthy. The Nuggets were still a dangerous team anyway. Remember, this team was literally one quarter away from making the Western Conference Finals last year after having one of the best records in the NBA. Another big story last night was Los Angeles Lakers falling at home to the Toronto Raptors. The Lakers were the best team in the NBA, the only team that only had one loss. Now they lost their second game. The Raptors, who lost Kyle Lowry due to injury, we'll speak on injuries in just a few minutes. They were shorthanded. No Kyle Lowry, no Serge Ibaka. Toronto went in on the road, 24-11 from Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet shifted back over to point guard, 23 points, 10 assists. They dragged Norman Powell off. They dragged Norman Powell back in the starting lineup. Not dragging him, but they extended his minutes up a bit. Chris Boucher, a guy who kind of plays like Serge Ibaka, starting to receive more minutes. And we even saw a Rondé Jefferson sighting as well, too. He scored 10 points last night. Lakers are now 7-2. They had a 7-game winning streak snapped. They're still figuring out ways to get Kyle Kuzma back in the office. Kuzma had 15 points last night. This game's played on Sunday. LeBron James struggled 5-15 from the floor, but he had another triple-double, 13 and 15. Anthony Davis had 27, but here's been the issue. 0 points from Danny Green, 0 points from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Avery Bradley, he struggled, 4 of 10 shooting from him last night. They couldn't find guys who can score and hit shots down the stretch. It was really mostly Siakam and their defense, winning and snapping that 7-game Laker winning streak as well, too. So, other big things that happened on the court over the weekend. The Portland Trailblazers, Friday night, so if you go back to Friday night was a night of scoring fest. Damian Lillard scored 60 points in the loss. D'Angelo Russell scored 52 points in a loss. Siakam had 44 on Friday night. So many guys had games that were huge scoring fest last night, over on Friday night. Like I said, Wiggins had 40 in that Minnesota win. So there were guys that scored in big bunches. Like I said, you start with Damian Lillard. Like I said, 60 points from Damian Lillard on Friday night. It was really Damian doing everything he possibly could. Blazers were going through a tailspin until they played last night. They got a huge game besides from Lillard. Anthony Simons had a big game. They kept the game in overtime. Big threes from Kent Bazemore down the stretch. It stopped that bleeding. Portland's now 4-6. People in Portland are starting to get a little unsatisfied by what's going on with the floor. Remember, Portland's still missing Zach Collins. They're missing a lot of their front line guys. Rodney Hood's hurt. Portland fans just need to calm down a little bit. Don't worry about, the playoffs right now. It's just getting through the beginning part of the season. It's going to be growing pains. The Blazers are not the same team they were last year. They lost Al-Farouq Aminu. They lost Mo Harkless. It's going to take time for these newer guys to get used to everything. But I'll tell you one thing. Anthony Simons could shoot that basketball. He had 20 points last night for the Portland Trail Blazers. He's going to step right into that Seth Curry role before he went to Dallas. A team that I will go ahead and go on record in saying this was a team I thought was the worst team in the NBA. But the Phoenix Suns are the surprise of the NBA right now. They're 6-3 last night, 6-3 on the record, on the books right now, on the scoreboard and the standings. Last night, 138-112 over Brooklyn last night. Was it a point guard? The addition of Ricky Rubio has changed everything in Phoenix. When you look at the Phoenix Suns, I thought, honestly, they were the worst constructed roster in the NBA. They didn't really go get a point guard in the draft. They went and got Rubio. And then on top of everything you see there, DeAndre Ayton suspended for 25 games for testing positive for for breaking the drug law. You would think the Suns would be at this point be getting the doors blown off them. They have beaten not just the Brooklyn Nets. They've also beaten the LA Clippers. They've also beaten the Philadelphia 76ers at home. The Suns are 6-3 without DeAndre Ayton. They're winning games. Aaron Baines is hitting 3-pointers. They're getting contributions not just from Rubio and Devin Booker, who's averaging right around 25 points a game. They're getting Kelly Oubre, who they decided to keep last year. They decided to keep and pay him a big salary. They're contributing. The Suns are actually, I'm not saying are they for real right now, but this is a breath of fresh air. Phoenix is winning basketball games, and they're doing it with just sharing the ball. They had 37 assists last night against Brooklyn. They are getting up and down the court. Rubio is making things easier. We all know Ricky can play defense. He's one of the best pass defenders in the league. He gets in lanes, but when Ricky's hitting shots, that makes things dangerous. Last night he had 22 points, was his highest since when he played for the Jazz. Play for the Jazz. We had 22 last year. The Jazz. Like I said, the Nets had Suns had 37 assists last night. But really, it's more of Devin Booker being more efficient. 10 of 14 last night shooting the ball. He had 4 3-pointers, but he also had 9 assists. Cam Johnson, the guy that I was talking about, they surprisingly took in the draft. He had 15. And the crazy part about last night was the Suns trailed one time. It was 1-0. After trailing 1-0. The Suns just cruised last night. They had 16 3-pointers. They shot almost 50% from the 3-point line. The Suns are arguably the most surprising team in the league. And I'm going to be the one to say, you know what? I was wrong about the Suns. I will say that I was wrong about the Suns. And listen, Monty Williams is a very, very good head coach. I didn't doubt that hire. I just doubted this roster. And through 9 games, they've been the biggest surprise in the NBA. Hey, listen, if the Suns can maintain this, Monty Williams is definitely the coach of the year right now in the NBA, hands down. Now, we go from a team that's surprising to a team that we all knew was going to be bad. The New York Knicks fell to 2-8 last night, and Steve Mills and the front office had a nice little press conference to give David Fizdale the vote of confidence. Now, when you're giving your second-year coach a vote of confidence 10 games in the season, that doesn't sound good. Now, let's give David Fizdale a little bit of leeway here. David Fizdale didn't tell the front office to sign 4 power forwards this summer. They went out and signed Julius Randle, Bobby Portis, Taj Gibson, and don't forget Marcus Morris. They signed a bunch of forwards. Markieff Morris. They signed a whole bunch of forwards on this roster. No, Marcus Morris, actually, excuse me. They signed 4 power forwards this summer. They signed Elfrid Payton. They signed Wayne Ellington. The Knicks didn't go out and really add much, to the firepower. They drafted RJ Barrett, which is a great pick. Now Barrett has struggled the last 2 games. I think he had 3 points last night or 9 points last night, 3 points the night before. He's averaging 6 points a game in his last 2, but Barrett's playing a lot of minutes only because of the fact of the dilutive talent. The point guard problem is a problem. Dennis Smith Jr., he's had a lot of personal issues off the court that has not translated to him playing well on the court. Elfrid Payton is Elfrid Payton. He's hurt again. He's out. And Frankie Knuckles, or you want to call Frank Ntilikina, Frenchie Frank, whatever you want to call Frank, Ntilikina has actually been playing well of late. But it's been Frank Ntilikina. There's nothing to write home about. Kevin Knox is still not hitting shots on a consistent basis, and Mitchell Robinson's out because of a concussion. Right now, the Knicks are a mess. They're 2-8. Knicks fans are not happy. They got booed on their home court again, and the doors were blown off them again by the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, 108-87. Now you got the front office addressing issues with David Fitzdale and what the coaching is going forward. That's not a pretty sight. Speaking of things that need to be addressed, let's talk about the injuries over the weekend. Gordon Hayward fractured his hand. Gordon Hayward started to look like the Gordon Hayward that was in Utah. Saturday afternoon against the San Antonio Spurs, runs into LaMarcus Aldridge and fractures his hand. He'll have an MRI on Monday. We don't know the extent of the injury. Hopefully it'll be a couple of weeks. Hopefully it's not nothing long term. This will be a second hand injury by an elite player over the last couple of weeks, because we saw Steph Curry. He hurt his hand. And he's going to be out probably the rest of the season, more likely, from reports, especially from Rick Bucher early last week. Now Hayward is out. Boston was just starting to find a groove. Well, Boston just paid Jaylen Brown a whole bunch of money. Now it's time for Jaylen Brown to actually live up to the contract. I think Jaylen Brown will slide over to that starting lineup at the small forward position, allowing Marcus Smart to play next to Kemba Walker. Boston shouldn't lose much on that. We'll see how Boston reacts. They have a game on Monday night as well, too. Veterans Day night or Monday night. They have to start adjusting to this. Maybe you start seeing more of Carson Edwards. You maybe start seeing more of Romeo Langford. They might bring him up from Maine. It's time for somebody to step up. Jaylen Brown got the big contract. He needs to start proving like he's a $20 million a year player. He's got to start doing it right now. Speaking of things off the court, the Miami Heat have had their issues off the court this weekend as well, too, because Dion Waiters has now been suspended 10 games for the NBA for an undisclosed reason. AKA, long story short, Dion Waiters was on a team plane over the weekend on Saturday night and overdosed on gummies. Reports have come out that said Dion Waiters received a gummy from a teammate, overdosed, and had a seizure. Waiters was then flown back to South Beach, to Miami, for further testing. He's now been suspended 10 games. He was already suspended for contract detrimental to the team in the preseason. Waiters hasn't played one game all season. The part about the 10-game suspension with Waiters is that he is now ineligible for a $1.2 million bonus for playing in a certain number of games this season. Waiters, a guy that he had been trying to trade for months, can't seem to catch a break at this point. Well, it could be some doing on his own, also doing because of injuries as well, too. Waiters has not been the same player since he came off his injury last year, and the Heat cannot seem to get rid of this guy. I don't know what you're going to do to get rid of this guy in Miami. Waiters wants to start. Problem is the Heat have so many guards in front of them that need to play. I understand Dion wants to be on the court, but I also understand the Heat also have Tyler Hero. You have Winslow, you have Jimmy Butler, and you have Kendrick Nunn all in front of him in the rotation. This is not going to be pretty. There could be a situation where Miami might have to buy this guy out to get rid of him if that's going to be the case. Now you got Waiters. You have Gordon Hayward, who's injured. Let's look into whatever some of the studs of the weekend. Like I said, the player of the weekend, of course, is Nikola Jokic. 2 game winners over the weekend. The numbers didn't prove, he didn't have the biggest numbers in the league, but 2 game winners in less than 72 hours. You get my vote for player of the week. Bojan Bogdanovic had a game winner on Friday night, for the Utah Jazz. And it's been a weekend of game winners. It's been a weekend of big scoring outputs. Like I said, Lillard had 60 on Friday. You saw with, D'Angelo Russell's 52, for Golden State in his first game back against Minnesota in a loss. Andrew Wiggins had 40. Siakam had 44 on Saturday. Lillard had a 35 again. I think he had 30 or 35 last night. Trae Young had 35. Guys are putting up numbers at an insane rate. Scoring numbers have gone up all across the league. Teams are scoring at a high rate. And the Orlando Magic finally hit 100 points for the first time last night. Speaking of the Magic have struggled have struggled offensively. They finally hit 100 points last night, but the problem was the Indiana Pacers scored 109 points. The good news for the Magic is that Jonathan Isaac plays really good basketball. The bad news is the team can't find ways to score the basketball, and they're struggling, and Markelle Fultz does like the Markelle Fultz they're expecting to see. He's creating plays and shots for his teammates. The problem is he's not controlling the game like we want him, like the Magic fans want him to. The jump shot is still kind of shaky at times. He still can get to the rim. We're not going to argue that point. He still can get to the rim, but maybe a little premature to put him in the starting lineup at this point. The good news is DJ Augustine hasn't lost a beat since going to the bench. He's actually been playing better than he was off the bench than he was when he was starting. The Magic, Terrence Ross is finally starting to seem a little bit healthy. The Magic are 3-7. It's time for something to change in Orlando because Isaac is playing such good basketball. Here's the problem. Aaron Gordon has not been Aaron Gordon all season. Aaron Gordon is still missing. Something's not right with Aaron Gordon. His jump shot's not falling. And the leap that Magic fans are looking for Aaron Gordon has not happened. Evan Fournier has found his shot over the last couple games. Last night was his best shooting game he's had in a very, very long time. He was knocking down threes everywhere against Indiana. He was carrying the offense at one point. The Magic could not seem to do anything. Vucevic was doing what Vucevic does best. He had a big game against Sabonis, but the problem was the defense last night failed the Magic. The defense allowed Indiana to knock down 3-pointers on a regular basis. Doug McDermott had his best game he's had since he's been a Pacer. He was hitting shots, and the Pacers were shorthanded. No Miles Turner, no Victor Oladipo, and I don't think Jeremy Lamb, and no Jeremy Lamb last night either. The Pacers went into Orlando and took care of business. The Magic are now 3-7. They've got to figure this out. I'll talk more about this about my Orlando radio show on Saturday on 98.5 The Wire. So there's been a lot going on in the NBA this weekend. Like I said, you saw buzzer beaters. We've had incidents with injuries. Speaking of injuries, Kyle Lowry is going to be out for the next couple of weeks for the Toronto Raptors, along with Serge Ibaka. That means for Raptors fans, you're going to see a lot more Chris Boucher. Like I said last night, Freddie VanVleet slid back over the point guard to his role that he's been mastering at. He's been really good at. He's been playing a lot of the off ball because Norman Powell is still trying to figure out his way. Now the starting lineup is going to be VanVleet and Powell going forward. Quick look at the standings before we dip into the Monday night schedule. Boston now leads the Eastern Conference at a 7-1 record. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. You got Toronto at 7-2, Milwaukee at 7-3. The Sixers and Heat are both at 6-3. The surging Indiana Pacers, who have won 3 games in a row, are now 6-4. And then you have Cleveland and Brooklyn. Cleveland at 4-5. They're in the playoffs right now. We ain't really talked about the Cavs, but they're 4-5 right now. On top of Brooklyn, Charlotte's at 4-6, along with Detroit. Atlanta's 3-6. Remember, they had Trae Young missing a lot of time. Orlando's 3-7 with Chicago. Washington's 2-6 and not very good. The Knicks are the worst team in the league at 2-8. Out west, Lakers and Denver are both 7-2. Houston, Utah and Phoenix, along with the Clippers and Dallas, are all at 6-3, tied for third. Spurs and Timberwolves both 5-4. Remember, Cat missed 2 games due to suspension. Karl-Anthony Towns missed 2 games due to suspension. Portland's at 4-6, along with Oklahoma City. Sacramento's 3-6. New Orleans and Memphis are both 2-7, and the Golden State Warriors are 2-8. But you gotta think Golden State's missing the majority of their roster. Draymond Green might not play Monday. Neither might not Eric Paschall because they're all hurt, joining that injury list of mess out in Oakland. So let's get into the Monday games. Monday has a nice little slate of games. It's only a 6-game schedule on Monday night. The major game will be Kawhi Leonard going against his former team. Raptors travel basically around the corner to play the Clippers. They played in that same building last night. It's a back-to-back for the Raptors. Clippers will have everybody in the lineup. No Paul George on Monday night. There was word he was going to play, but it could be Wednesday before George hits the lineup. Expect Kawhi to go off against his former team. There's no love lost. I mean, it was a great way of partying. Kawhi got in the championship. They went to LA. Expect Kawhi to have a huge game tonight. Other games on the schedule, Minnesota takes on Detroit. Don't know about Derrick Rose's status. Jeff Teague is out again for Minnesota. Expect Jarrett Culver to get more minutes, and Culver's actually playing pretty well. Watch Detroit. If Derrick Rose gets back on live, Derrick Rose is going to definitely be a big boost offensively for the Pistons. You got the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. The Mavericks will get Kristaps Porzingis back. He took a day off, last night off due to maintenance issues. He's coming off a season-ending ACL injury last year. You don't want to put too much mileage on the beginning of the season. And load management, I understand for guys coming off injuries, don't want to play them too many games, in a certain amount of period. So the back-to-backs might be a little interesting, in my opinion, but I can speak on that another time. Celtics are 7-1. Celtics are at home. It'll be interesting to see what lineup the Celtics will go with. I expect Marcus Smart to step in the starting lineup and Jaylen Brown to move over to Gordon Hayward's spot. Grizzlies are 2-7 against the 5-4 Spurs. Grizzlies should get Ja Morant back. He was out due to load management. Didn't want to put too much too many games on the rookie so far early in the season. Brandon Clark is the real question mark. Will Clark give it a go? He's had some back issues. Spurs have been up and down. Aldridge finally scored 39 over the weekend. Hopefully they start getting and feeding LaMarcus Aldridge because the Spurs are going to need him. Rockets and Pelicans, this should be an up and down affair. James Harden is James Harden and Russell Westbrook. They should be able to blow the doors off the Pelicans, who can't seem to stop anybody defensively, even though they did beat the Charlotte Hornets on Saturday night. Jazz and Warriors. The Warriors, like I said, should have the possibility of getting Draymond Green back, but Eric Pascal's hurt as well too. The Jazz are starting to find things, except for Mike Conley's jump shot. Conley's got to start figuring it out, and Mike Conley turns the all-star that he has been over the years. But Donovan Mitchell and D'Angelo Russell will be just worth it watching it on the late night schedule. It'll be a game to watch. A good scoring match between two of the best scoring guards in the league. So we caught you back up over the weekend. There's been so many things, and we probably missed a few things to try and get this podcast condensed as quick as possible because this is Monday and there's so much going on. So we want all. This is really a big shout out to all the veterans and all the different forms of military, Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, the Army. This is your day. We want to be appreciative for all you've done for our country, risking your life, your time. My dad's a Marine. I have my uncles and my dad. They're all part of the military. My cousins, who are also in the military as well too. So happy Veterans Day to you guys as well. For a lot of the people in the country who are off today, enjoy this. Like I said, this is a day that was given to us because of the sacrifice of so many who are living with us and the ones that are not living with us. So like I said, big shout outs to all the veterans on Veterans Day as well too. So we'll be back on Tuesday, recapping the 6 games on the schedule and then getting you ready for a busy 8-game schedule on Tuesday night, the NBA. The Tuesday night schedule is capped off by a couple of some interesting matchups, including Hawks and Nuggets, Lakers and Suns are the marquee games on Tuesday night. So this is the Around the Association podcast. Follow me on Twitter once again, Danny D8NY, number 3 Thompson on Twitter for the latest breaking news across the league, as well as on Facebook, which will be Around the Association. Follow the website, aroundassociation.com. Big shout outs to all the listeners. Like I said, check us out on all forms of social media as well too. So I'll check you guys out tomorrow for Around the Association podcast. Enjoy Veterans Day. Peace.